People in the Middle Ages ate way more than we do in modern times. Aristocrats ate twice as many calories as we do, up to 4 or 5,000 calories a day. Peasants ate about 25% more calories than we do on average, and monks up to a whopping 6,000 calories per day. And yes, obesity was common amongst the upper classes and monks, but once you see their menu, it'll make sense. During this time, people usually ate 2 meals a day, dinner at midday and a lighter supper in the evening. Members of the church and cultivated gentry avoided breakfast, along with moralists who didn't want to break the overnight fast too early in the day. Something that I can't relate to because I love breakfast. However, working men still ate breakfast for practical reasons, so they could fuel up for the long day ahead. Meals were usually eaten communally. For religious orders, large households, and many courts, you were not allowed to eat outside the set meal time in the Great Hall. Food was usually served on plates or stew pots, and everyone would take their share from the dish. You were expected to bring your own knife, which was their primary eating utensil, unless you were important enough to be given one. Diets were very high carb, with most of the calories coming from alcohol and cereals. Barley, oat, and rye for the poor, and wheat for the governing classes. They were usually consumed as bread, porridge, gruel, and pasta. Each person usually ate between 2.2 and 3.3 pounds of bread per day. If you were rich, it was made of finely milled flour, and if you were a peasant, your bread was brown and coarse. This was a time of strict social norms between the classes. These norms required the food of the working class to be less refined to resemble their way of life. So if you were doing hard manual labor, you ate cheap, coarse food. Before the Black Plague, the average harvest worker didn't eat a lot of meat, but by the 15th century, it was about 20% of their diet. According to scientists from the University of Bristol, based on analysis of pottery from the time, stews became a staple of the medieval peasant diet. They were typically made of meat, which was beef or mutton, and vegetables such as cabbage or leek. Dairy products, known as green cheeses, were also important parts of their diet. In addition to cheese, the lower classes supplemented their diet with fruit and vegetables, and what these were depended on what region you lived in. If you were a member of the upper class, you also had access to sugar and spices, which were a sign of luxury and wealth. I also just want to touch on the fact that famine was common during this time period, with the average person seeing between 3 to 4 in their lifetime, so you had to feast when you could. To me, it's interesting that while the recipes have changed over time, we still enjoy many of these foods today. What did you think about the medieval diet? Do you think their diet was better or worse than ours? Let me know.